one. A very warm welcome to the first of a new series of the Lord Russell Baker podcast. It's all about nostalgia. We're calling it Sun and Rain after the line in a famous song. And that's very appropriate because our very special guest this week on the first show is the ex-Arsenal, Chelsea and Stoke legend, Mr. Alan Hudson. Alan and Lord Russell, good morning to you both.
Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Alan, and welcome to the show, Alan. Is it okay if we call you Huddy? All your friends do.
Yeah. I mean, I've been called a lot worse. But,
Likewise.
Yeah. Not a problem.
Fantastic. It's great having you on the show, Alan. It really is. And it's an absolute joy because it's the first one back for a while because Ed sadly had fallen ill for a while and now recovering. So we're back in. We've got a series of great podcasts coming up and it's amazing for you to be the first one. It really is. So it's a real joy for us here. I mean, I'm going to start from the beginning, Alan, really. You were born and brought up near the King's Road, so you're obviously a local lad, and initially rejected by the club you supported as a boy, Fulham. How did you take that? Because that must have been awful. We all want to play for the clubs we support.
Well, mine was quite a strange situation. I lived where I am now. I lived probably about a quarter of a mile in the old prefabs.
Oh wow!
Right near the Chelsea power station.
Oh.
And my father came from Fulham. He came from a place called Walham Green in Fulham, and he wasn't a big Fulham supporter, but he was a Fulham boy. And my uncle was a big Fulham fan. And around the World's End in Chelsea that time, Johnny Haynes used to be around.
Oh wow!
The great Johnny Haynes.
Marvelous. Yeah.
As a kid, I got taken by one of Johnny Haynes' friends to Craven Cottage to actually sit in the cottage and watch the game, and I kind of fell in love with Fulham.
Yes.
All my mates in school were Chelsea, and there was only two Fulham supporters. That was me and my best friend, Billy Boyce, who was a Jamaican.
Oh, wow.
And he was the best cricketer in the school. I was the best footballer. He was the best sprinter. I was the best long distance runner. So it was I always say that it was like the program that was on telly, I Spy at the time. Remember Robert Culp and
yes,
Cosby, and that Billy and I were like that. So I used to joke to people and say that when Billy and I go to Fulham, we don't need to buy a scarf because we've already got the colours. And he was the first black. He was the first black kid actually to be in the cottage at that time.
Oh, fantastic!
And he still goes, bless him.
Oh, that's great. Do you still catch up with him?
But my dad took me there, as it used to happen, and then when I was 13, 14, and they turned me away, said I was too small, and my dad said, well, he will grow.
Yes.
And around that time, Alan Ball had played at Craven Cottage, and he had scored a hat-trick for Blackpool against Fulham, and I just thought it was a weird statement, you're too small, when Alan Ball was playing, and at 14, I was the same size as Alan Ball,
Madness.
So it was really weird. So the last resort was, because we lived near Stamford Bridge, that's where we went.
Yeah, because not long after, you did sign schoolboy terms with Chelsea. I mean, you must have been over the moon. After all, Chelsea were a huge football club going places. From the 60s through to the 70s, they were a fantastic team. And
yeah, because they were very fortunate. I think that was the start of the new era at Chelsea. Tommy Docherty.
Definitely.
Tommy Docherty liked me as a kid. It was quite obvious I was going to become a player, although I didn't really think so. When I was 14, I played for West London Schoolboys at Highbury against Charlie George.
Mm.
And that was a bit of a, experience because Charlie was a big lad and I was a small lad. And I remember him hitting the bar from about 35 yards. I couldn't kick the ball that far.
Wow.
So, but Charlie was over there. And all my time at the Bridge when I was 15, as an apprentice, a fella called Wilf Chitty at West Ham United, he was always used to come to Hendon to watch our matches, and he would always at my father to please let us have Alan over at West Ham.
Mm.
And because it was on the doorstep, my father said no, but, in hindsight, apart from the great experience I had in 1970 and 71, 72, well, before it all went pear-shaped, I had a great relationship with Bobby Moore, and I wondered what my life would have been if I'd have went to West Ham.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it, really?
It is. But I wouldn't, if I'd have went to West Ham, I would never have won nothing, would I?
That's right. That's right. And, you were playing...
Mind you, I was too young to play in the '66 World Cup with them three, but I played with against the three of them, obviously, in the early days at Chelsea. And then when I signed for Stoke in 1974, Jeff Hurst was there playing for Stoke.
Yes.
And I got there. When I arrived there, I thought I was going to move into the hotel opposite the station, and my boss said, no. He said, you're moving in with Jeff and Judith Hurst.
Wow.
You can't come up here and stay on your own because of my reputation.
Exactly.
No. So I ended up living with Jeff and Judith for about my first 3 or 4 months that I was at Stoke before I bought a home there.
Yeah.
Because I'd split up with my wife for the first time, first of many times. So it was there was quite a thing there. And then years later, when I fell out at Arsenal, Bobby Moore talked me into going to Seattle. So I had a very strong bond with Bobby.
Yes, it sounds like it too. Of course, West Ham won the World Cup, didn't they? Everyone says. Well, the West Ham fans do.
No, they say in East I don't see how they can win the World Cup if they can't win the league.
No, exactly right. Yes, absolutely right. But of course, you've had an injury-prone career as well, Alan, haven't you? And of course, injury denied you the chance to become Chelsea's youngest ever player at age 16, didn't it? But eventually you made your senior debut 9 months later in February 1969. But sadly, in a 5-0 loss against Southampton. What did you think of that game, Alan?
Well, it's amazing, really. Again, Jimmy Gabriel signed me at Southampton, in Seattle, played at Southampton that day, and Ron Davis came over to play in Seattle. And so football's an amazing game like that. The people you meet at the beginning, you meet at the end as well. You end up playing for and playing with. But yeah, I mean, I only got selected against Southampton. I was 17, going on 18, and 4 of the lads got brought in a restaurant having lunch over, drinking too much wine, and they all got dropped. Osgood, Charlie Cook, Tommy Baldwin, the usual suspects. And I was on the treatment table at Stamford Bridge having treatment, and I wouldn't have been fit to play in the reserves. And then a phone call come through. Dave Sexton said to Harry Meadows, our physio, he said, if Alan's fit, tell him he's playing in the first team. And I jumped off the treatment table, thinking I played in the first team when I shouldn't even have played in the reserves. So
wow,
I shouldn't have played in that game, but it was a great introduction, because the only way after that was up, wasn't it? And then 6 months later, I got thrown back in, and my real debut really was at White Hart Lane the following season. And I must have done all right. We drew 1-1, and the great Jimmy Greaves played.
Yes.
So that was my real introduction to English football.
Yeah, and I think the 69-70 season in particular, you certainly established yourself as the team's creative playmaker. You were a fantastic football player, Alan. Playing at a Chelsea side noted for its flair and skill, a fantastic team. Complete with the equally flamboyant players as yourself, such as Peter Osgood and Charlie Cook. I mean, how did you get on with the king of Stamford Bridge and Bonnie Prince Charlie Cook as well? I have met Charlie many, many years ago myself. Lovely man. How did you get on with these guys personally?
Was he sober?
Yeah, he just finished. He just literally coming off the pitch. Actually, Chelsea took a side down to Aldershot.
That doesn't mean he's sober.
Oh, probably not. No, he didn't seem as if he'd been drinking. But Chelsea put a side down to Aldershot at the Aldershot Military Stadium against the British Army, and Charlie was playing, and I walked off with him at the end, and a lovely fella. How did you get on with Peter Osgood and Charlie, though, personally as well as in the team?
Well, I was lucky in many ways that when I was 16, just turned 16, I had a bad knee injury again. That was my first real bad injury. Strangely enough, the injury was called the Osgood-Slater's disease.
Oh God!
And I always joke that if I do these nights out, it could have been worse. It could have been the Osgood-Hutchinson disease, because then I would have been in trouble with, in Betty Ford's clinic or something like that.
Yes.
But yeah, I was injured all the time through I was 16. And Tommy Docherty, with great wisdom, a lot of kids would have been told that, we're not signing you. But he put me on dressing room duty. And so I cleaned all the dressing rooms, cleaned the boots. I cleaned everything that moved at Stamford Bridge. And
wow,
I was only 16. So what happened was I got to know the first team very well. They used to look at me like I was a boot boy or something, And just before about a month, then we changed managers. Docherty left and Sexton came in, and Sexton had never seen me play. And but through my youth team coaches, Frank Blunston and Tommy Harmer, they told him, to sign me. And they put me in a friendly match at the end of the season in a Mike Keane testimonial at QPR. And I played in that game, and he signed me immediately the next morning. And
fantastic.
Before you know it, the following week, I was on a plane to Mozambique with the first team. And so it was quite an introduction.
What a journey.
Alan,
I knew them from the dressing room, and I knew what they was all about, because I used to clean their kit, and I had to clean the showers and toilets.
Oh wow!
And this was after they'd been out the night before, and it was so it was quite something. So I knew them, and they knew me, and I used to clean their shoes as well as their boots. So Osgood was. I wouldn't say he was a hero of mine in them days. Charlie was. I was more of a Fulham supporter.
Yes.
But
Alan, were you always a midfielder?
Being Peter Osgood's roommate in my second year, and we got on famous. We always got on famous, and I loved him. And I suppose it was a kind of a mutual respect thing,
Yes.
But he seen me as a youngster coming through. But we had a kind of a love-hate relationship, me and Ossie.
Yeah.
He always knew best, but he was rightly the king of Stamford Bridge. And
absolutely, he was.
And will always be that.
I mean, going back to 1970, you played in every match in Chelsea's run to the FA Cup final, but then missed the final at Wembley and the replay at Old Trafford due to another injury. That must have been bitterly disappointing for you, Alan.
Yeah, it was. It was a double whammy, really, because I missed the FA Cup final, both of them, because of the replay. And I ended up missing the World Cup as well, because I was in the World Cup squad of 1970. And a journalist told me that I would have taken part in that. And so I got a funny feeling that I always, in the back of my mind, that when England played Germany in Mexico, and they brought Bobby Charlton off and put Colin Bell on, I think I would have been the one that went on for Bobby Charlton.
Yeah.
And the result might have been different. I'm not saying I would have changed the game, but I feel my game was more up to international standards. And although Colin Bell played in the game in my international debut against West Germany, I always believe that there's Football League players and then there's international players. And
Definitely.
I think the international stage suited me far better than people like Colin Bell. And I think I proved that against West Germany.
Yeah, you did, and that fine win, and they were the world champions, of course, weren't they? From 74.
Yeah, they were unbeaten for a couple of years.
Exactly.
And, it was just a dream to be playing with Alan Ball, who won the World Cup, and playing against Franz Beckenbauer, who was the captain of the World Cup in 74. It was quite something to come off the field after doing that. Was I proved the point.
Yeah, and one of the interesting stories, of course, there about the international side is that you only won 2 England caps. It was just absolutely amazing. And in that German side that you played against and won, the world champion, I forget which player it was, but one of the German players said, If we had an Alan Hudson in Germany, we'd have built his team around Alan, and he'd have got 50 or 60 caps. I mean, this is incredible, isn't it?
Well, I've just been writing something actually. Gunter Netzer was a player that didn't play that night, but he destroyed England in 1972 in the European Championships. And he was fabulous. And he was the one that turned around and said, where his actual words were, where have England been hiding this player?
Yeah.
He said it was world class against us, and Helmut Schön commented, Franz Beckenbauer commented, but it fell on deaf ears because Don Revie, because of 1970, was very anti-Chelsea.
He was.
And he didn't, even after 70, because Oscar scored that great goal at Old Trafford and always scored against Leeds. He just, as soon as he took over the England squad, he didn't want to know Osgood, and Osgood was the best centre forward in the country.
I quite agree.
So it's we kind of relive history because the same thing kind of happened in the Euros when Southgate wouldn't play Grealish.
Yes,
it's just a management thing. If they get a bee in their bonnet about certain players and they don't, but Don Revie just didn't like Londoners. I think it was very racial,
Yes. Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I think that's actually quite true, isn't it? And, he was a strange man, Revie, wasn't he? I mean, it's getting off the subject a little bit here, but when he left Leeds to become the England manager, and we all know Brian Clough then fell into his shoes. Brian Clough was always going to lose that, wasn't he? Because I still think Revie was still playing with the players, tinkering with them, and getting in the way.
I think with Revie made it very clear that he didn't like certain players. We had one training session in 1975. He told Stan Bowles, Tony Curry, Frank Worthington individually on the training field that they weren't in his plans. And it was unbelievable. I can't read that. What is it?
I was going to say, Alan. You were one of a lot of I've been thoroughly entertained listening to this. You were one of a lot of very gifted players that England never rewarded. There was yourself, Tony Curry, Stan Bowles, Frank Worthington. The list goes on. Why was there this distrust of flair players for England at the time? None of you got a look in. It was ridiculous.
Can you help me with that one?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you can hear Ed actually.
Yeah, you're not hearing me very well.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, he can't hear you. So we'll carry on. Yeah, absolutely right, Alan. And those Chelsea Leeds encounters, when Revie was there, they were spine crunching, weren't they? I mean, you go back to that final FA Cup final replay at Old Trafford, and there was a Premiership referee, who sat down and refereed the match on a TV screen. He said it would never have finished. He said there wouldn't have been enough players on the park, red cards and yellows everywhere. I mean,
well, that's right. I think probably that I've ever known where, it's usually local derbies. You usually get Liverpool and Everton and Manchester United and City and maybe Chelsea and Spurs, but our matches against Leeds were always like that. I think how it all came about was, I think it was just the two sets of fans more than anything. And they used that when they got against each other, there was a war, and I think it spilled onto the field.
Yes, I think you're right.
Horrendous. It was horrendous. They were really great matches to play in, though.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, the atmosphere as well in those matches was incredible. I mean, I can remember someone saying to me once, I don't know how true this is, Alan, that actually on the field of play, Leeds United, Chelsea players just literally had a war, spine-breaking wars. But off the pitch, I heard that you were all good friends and had drinks as well. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Ah, well, that's it.
No. People surmise that.
Yeah.
I think Ozzy went on a couple of England trips, and I remember hearing him talk about Norman Hunter one day, saying what a nice fella he was. But this was a lot later, after our careers were finished, and he was doing after dinners with him and all that. But there's no doubt about it. I come across people with Bremner at dinners, and I couldn't speak to him, and I didn't like him. He didn't like me. I just didn't like them, and I can't understand how any Chelsea player's ever gone to play for Leeds. I can't understand how Ken Bates went to Leeds. When I left Chelsea in 1974, it was the one club that I wouldn't have joined. No matter if they offered me £1 million, I wouldn't have went to them. I just didn't like them. I didn't like Don Revie, and he didn't like me.
Yeah, I can understand that. You're not wanting to go to Leeds, and I was surprised too that that any player or any manager or anybody that owns any club from Chelsea goes to Leeds United. It's absolutely incredible. So not a good thing.
It's all for money, and Dennis Wise done it.
He did.
Had done it, and I think the feud, it was kind of the end of the 1970s.
Yeah,
when they did it,
definitely.
But it wouldn't have happened nowadays. I can assure you that maybe a couple of players might have went. Ronnie Harris might have went just to play with Norman Hunter.
That would have been fantastic, actually. Yes, that would have been absolutely incredible.
And against them two in 5-a-side.
Oh, well, make sure you got your shin pads tightened around your legs. That's for sure. You would certainly get nobbled, wouldn't you? And as you were quite injury prone, Alan, that wouldn't have been good, would it for you? But the club's debt burden caused by building that then new East Stand at Chelsea resulted in the failure to replace key players, and the spiral of decline began, didn't it? From 73 onwards. At the time, you allegedly fell out with Dave Sexton. I'm not sure how true that is, resulting in you being placed on a transfer list. But of course, you were sold to pay for the new stand. We all know that, along with Peter Osgood and others.
It was more Peter Osgood than me. There was always shaping up to each other, always threatening each other, and wherever we went. Osgood always got the blame for their centre half scoring with the header. It was that they had a thing between them, because Dave Sexton come from a boxing family, and Osgood fancied himself as a bit of a fighter, so there was always this thing between them. But with me, it was obvious when they couldn't finish the East Stand that they had to sell their two most commoditable players.
Yes.
And that was me and Oz. And they got, I went for a record fee, 240,000. And then Ozzy went for another record fee of 325. So it was $750,000 that saved the club, really.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? Yeah, I quite agree.
Yeah.
It did.
But it didn't do me any good.
No. You didn't want to leave, did you, really?
No, Osgood didn't want to leave more than me. Stamford Bridge was his ground,
Yeah, of course it was.
They loved him and he loved them, but I'm afraid I didn't love the club. I love my team. There's no secret that I love my teammates. I still keep in touch with Tommy Baldwin. I see John Dempsey. I love Johnny Boyle. So
good players.
This is great. I loved our times together.
Absolutely. And what was Dave Sexton like as a manager coach? Because he was quite a quiet man, really. Not much in the press, media. What was he actually like as a person?
Well, we've all got different opinions of this, but in my opinion, and I think I'm not far off in saying that Dave was a teetotaler.
Right.
And he really didn't like us going out and enjoying ourselves and all that. And he was I think he was a player at West Ham or Leyton Orient or something like that, and he banged his knee, and I don't know if he'd have been any good. But he kind of, I think he kind of felt that we were wasting our talent by going out enjoying ourselves when he didn't drink, and that was the crux of all the matter, the trouble. And the more he did it, the more we did it. And we fall out and everything else. Deep down, off the field, away from football, Dave was a lovely man.
Yes.
I got on with him great, and we all got on with him great. And it was such a terrible shame. The best thing could have happened to Chelsea in my day, in them days when I was apprentice and then going into, instead of sacking Doherty, they should have kept Doherty as manager and brought Dave in as coach.
Yes.
And then there wouldn't have been. I think they would have been like the Clough and Taylor before that, Mercer and Allison. I think Doherty and Sexton would have been a fantastic combination.
That's an interesting point of view, and I think you're probably right, Alan. That would have been an interesting.
Because Doherty could handle people. Doherty could handle people. You could fall out with a manager, but you never fell out with a coach. And Dave was coach, and you wouldn't fall out because it was nothing to do with him. What we did in our private lives.
Yes.
My son at the moment, he's a captain of. He's a manager of the United States of America at the moment. And although he's only the interim manager, he's been head coach of New Zealand. He's been head coach of Bahrain. He's now head coach of America. And I said to him, we do podcasts together and we get together. And I said, Anthony, you got to make up your mind. You got to make up your mind whether you want to be a manager or a coach. You can't do both.
Yeah, absolutely right.
One of them's enough. One of them is hard enough job, but to do both, because I think you'll agree with me here that if you were the manager and the coach and I went in the office and you wouldn't give me a rise and I fell out with you, and then the following day we go into training, you asked me to run, I would say, no, I'm not going to do it. It's common, it's human nature that will happen.
It is, yes.
Keep the job separate. You can't fall out with a coach in the manager's office, and then the following day he asks you to do a cross country, and I say, you do the cross country.
Yeah, I can understand that.
That's how it all come about. Dave should never have managed Chelsea.
No,
he should have been the coach.
No, I quite agree. And you then went on to Stoke City, of course, which you got great memories of at Stoke. I think Tony Waddington saw you as the final piece of the jigsaw that would turn Stoke into a genuine championship challengers, and they finished second. I mean, just narrowly lost out to Derby County, who won the league, and that's some journey, isn't it?
Well, it was exactly going back to Dave Sexton. Going on to Tony Waddington was the complete opposite. I met a man that changed my life. He reshaped my life. He didn't care what you did on a Monday to Friday, as long as you played, give your best on a Saturday. That was all he was interested in. And halfway, when I was starting to find my feet at Stoke and playing my best football, we was out one day having a drink, and he said to me, Ali said, you're doing everything right, but you're doing them in the wrong order. and it was so true. I never changed nothing, but he was right, because, and I always go back to, I don't know if you see the Morecambe and Wise show, where
I did.
When he was playing the piano, and Andre Previn asked him, he was playing, and Andre Previn said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm doing it all right, but I'm doing it in the wrong order. And that can happen in life,
It can.
It's like being a father figure, and that's what Mr. Waddington was. He was a great father figure, and he would, I never had one crossword with him in three years. And then when I went back to Stoke, I was with him on his bedside the day he died. And
bless.
Yeah, I love the man, and that's what it's all about. It's not just football, but any walk of life. It's all about love and respect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Alan, completely. That's absolutely a great attribute to have in life, isn't it? And when you were at Stoke, your debut was against Liverpool, wasn't it, in January '74? And there was a chap called Stan Cullis who was on radio, and he said that was the finest debut performance he'd ever seen. About you, Alan. That's some performance, Alan, isn't it?
Well, it was. When you think, and a year later, it's they said it's the finest England debut of all time. So I did it twice in a year. So that's how Waddington changed my life. And the amazing thing about that is, my last game for Chelsea, they tell me, I can't remember, it was against Liverpool.
Yes.
And I was all for me not to remember it, I must have been that bad.
Yes.
And my form had dipped badly, and we knew we was on our way out. Oscar and Peter and I knew we was out. And I played again Liverpool, and I was no good. And there it was. 2 weeks later, I'm facing them again at the Victoria Ground, and I put in a dazzling display. So it just goes to show.
It does.
I think I'm a follower of the horse racing game, and one of the great topics in horse racing is how a horse, when he goes from one yard to another, can be reinvented.
Yes.
Reinvigorated, you know. And they say, I see many times I watch a horse race, and before they're in the paddock, and they say he's just changed yards, he's gone on to another stable. This might change. This might change him, and that's exactly what happened to me. I changed stables, and I went on to a trainer who got the best out of me, and
Fantastic.
he lived my life. He let me live my life. Dave was more worried about what you did on Thursday rather than what you did on Saturday.
Yeah.
And to me, that's no good.
No, absolutely.
I mean, you as fans, you supporters, you don't care what we do Monday to Friday.
Of course not.
You pay your money to see what we can do on a Saturday, and that should have been Dave's, be all and end all.
Oh, but I, as a person, would probably be one of the guys that would be out there drinking with you and having fun with you as well, because that's how it is.
At Chelsea, we did drink with the fans, and
of course you did.
And they expected you. And on the way back on a train on a Saturday, they'd be in the same compartment with us, having a drink with us. So they were like part of our team.
Yes.
But Dave didn't like that.
No, it's a shame, isn't it? In fact, your manager Waddington at Stoke, he described the Stoke style of play at the time as the working man's ballet, and of course that's a title which you used for your autobiography in 1997.
It had to be, yeah. I mean, I was going to call it "They Shoot Horses" after I left Chelsea, after the film, and. But when Tony come up with that phrase, it had to be the title. And I remember Jeff Powell, the great Jeff Powell of the Daily Mail, who's still a dear friend of mine. He said it's the greatest title ever of any sporting book.
Fantastic.
And it's exactly what it was. It was ballet. It was football played to music. And if you watch, I've seen things on telly and they put music to it. And it's a working man's ballet.
Absolutely.
George Best in action to music is a working man's ballet.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it's a fantastic autobiography. I'm going to have to go out and buy it actually and have a read, Alan, because you've got.
I've been out for 30 years.
I've never bought it already. I've actually written my own autobiography as well, and it was written by my ghostwriter. Actually, was Ed Cousins-Lake, who sadly can't participate on this call at the moment. But that's a good thing, isn't it? Writing a book is quite an achievement, really, and so I will go out and have a look at yours. Absolutely.
I'm an avid writer.
Yes.
Because since the bad car accident I had, I find that writing is a good therapy.
Oh, I believe you've written quite a few books now, haven't you? Really, it's good to see you enjoy writing. So it'd be good to have a read. So, what other books have you written? I did have a look at that yesterday, and.
Well, my favourite book, apart from the Working Man's Ballet, is The Waddington Years, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to bring it out again. I'm going to reinvent it next January. Well, it'll come out before next January because it'll be 50 years of me signing for Stoke City.
Yes.
So I'm going to bring it out again.
That's brilliant. And your Working Man's Ballet autobiography, from what I can understand, was a critical success and led to you working as a columnist on the Stoke Evening Sentinel and the Sporting Life.
Yeah. I wrote for the Sentinel, which wasn't quite a big job, but I enjoyed my times later on the Sporting Life. That was more my cup of tea.
Yes.
Because I could be more critical, and I fell out with a few people while writing about football. Horse trainers telling me about football is, like me telling them about horses.
Absolutely. And then you wrote Tinker and the Talisman as well, which was self-published in 2003.
That was all about. I see a book there when Abramovich was going to sack Ranieri, and I just see that that being the right title and the time which changed Chelsea, didn't it?
It did indeed. Yes.
It really did.
And of course, also I think in 2004 you appeared as yourself in a cameo appearance in the film The Football Factory. That's another part of your life journey, isn't it, Alan? Really, a bit of film as well. It's fabulous.
Yeah, something else I never get paid for. But it was, I've never seen the film. But me and Osgood went up to the studios. It was all about. I've got a very good friend called Martin Knight, who's very good writer, very good book writer. He's He's going to republish. He's going to publish my book again. He's
Wonderful.
got his own publishing company. He's very smart. But I got involved with the film because of Martin.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great journey you've had in life, really. A lot of injuries, sadly, and your accident. I did read somewhere that you believe someone was actually trying to attempt on your life. I mean, it must have been an awful accident.
Well, I truly believe that everything that happened to me after I come out of my coma, and I mean, I was on the life support for 59 days.
Yeah, it's shocking.
8.5 weeks is a long time, and it was. I mean, I didn't go through it, but my family went through it. It was hell.
Oh.
But I knew when I come out of it, through all the events that led up to me being hit by the car and afterwards, that it wasn't no accident. So but that was 25. That was over 25 years ago. So
yes,
it's something I'm afraid I'm going to have to take to my grave with me.
Yeah, and what I think some of the surgeons said that they didn't think you were ever going to walk again, but you are. You're walking. You're living a life. And that's great to see, Alan. It really is. And so all the best for you for the future, really, to be honest. It's been a great journey here. Great story, great podcast. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I really have. Shame Ed has had to bowl out because of the technical difficulties.
Well, I'm sure we can do it again with Ed. And,
yes.
I don't know if it's from my end or whatever it is, but as soon as we break off, I'm going to go and try and do one on my own and see if the sound works. So I don't get it. I really don't understand.
No, I don't.
It's one of those days, as I said. I don't think even VAR could fix this one.
No, they probably couldn't, and to be totally honest. And I've got my mobile phone next to my mic talking to you, which is wonderful. So it's all very strange. But yeah, we could do another one. Why not? Because there's loads to talk about. There really is. There's so much we haven't spoken about. So we can do another one. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's do that.
There's a couple of interesting things coming up. As I said, my son's the manager of the USA team. I'm going over to Las Vegas in next month.
Wow.
June. They're playing Mexico, and hopefully if they get past them, they're playing the final. So, he's kind of living my dream. That
wonderful.
That would have been the job I would have loved.
Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Well, best of luck with that. I really do. I'll give you the best of luck for that. And let's keep in touch. Let's get another podcast organised for the future. We can talk about many things. And we'll keep in touch. And if I'm ever down in London, I'll give you a shout, Alan. And if you're around, we can go and have some lunch or something as well, and keep the communication going.
Why not?
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Alan. You're an absolute gent, and I wish you a fantastic Sunday. And
and to you, Russell. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Speak soon. Take care. Bye-bye, Alan. Bye-bye. Well, that's a lovely, fantastic podcast there, recorded with Alan Hudson. We had some technical difficulties with Ed not being able to join us, but as Alan's just confirmed, we're going to do another one, and we will, and Ed will be on it this time. And so this will get published tomorrow. So look out for everybody. It's going to be out tomorrow morning, and ready for everyone to hear. It's going to be it's a fantastic show. The world of Lord Russell is back and up and running. And next up, we have on the show in a couple of weeks, we have Tom Watt, former Lofty in EastEnders, and talking about his time in this EastEnders, and of course his football interests as well, as an Arsenal supporter and a writer and narrator. So that'll be a good show too. So all for now, take care everybody, and I look forward to the next show. Speak soon. Bye-bye.